evening. We are the in-group, and I'm Jennifer, this is Alyssa, Sharon, and Sarah, and we're going to talk to you about our solution for crypto's problem. We're going to start off tonight by doing a simple problem identification. We're going to talk about our plans for quality assurance, our production plans, and a communication strategy that we wish to put into place. So the initial problem for crypto would obviously be the poor quality, which resulted in these recalls. We believe that the poor quality is pretty much caused by their low standards for raw materials, and additionally because of the poor supervision in those Chinese manufacturing plants where they had the biggest problems. So essentially, the main problem that we have here is a quality control issue. All of this is leading to a tarnished brand image, which not only hurts them as a company, but also hurts the bottom line. So in this particular situation, we have the necessity of issuing these product recalls, but we feel that one of the major problems that they had was their response process. They don't have something set in place that can help them deliver an efficient and effective communication plan when they do need to issue these recalls. So we want to talk about how we might mitigate that, and then also we feel that another issue was their lack of ownership and control in their manufacturing facilities.
So one of the issues with the manufacturing controlling the suppliers is we want to set up a supplier scorecard. We want to make sure that the whole supply chain is very transparent and visible to everyone. One of the example scorecards would look like this, where we're looking at a couple different options and they're all weighted differently to their importance to the company. When the supplier is in a green zone, that means that they're safe to continue being one of our suppliers. When they're in the yellow zone, they will need to be working with one of our quality engineers to get into a green zone. And when they're in the red zone, if we can't help them, they'll probably be dropped as one of our suppliers. So one of our modes to do this efficiently is to place quality engineers at each one of our suppliers' locations and really help them develop into the supplier that we need them to be. We're also recommending that our suppliers put an engineer at their suppliers, and so we can manage our second-tier suppliers as well as our suppliers and really just cut out all the waste and inefficiencies where they're starting, so when they roll out through production, there will be no problems.
All right, to address the production and manufacturing plans, now here we really want to focus on increasing quality control. Here we have, so what we have in plan is short-term, taking the production from the outsourced plants, pulling it over back to the U.S. and distributing it amongst those plants. And in that time, we're going to put the outsourced plants on a probationary period, which then we investigate and figure out exactly the problem and address it. Now from there, after that, we shift production back to those outsourced plants. Now in the long term, what we want to do is definitely work on what Alyssa had just said before, quality assurance. Now that requires more strict guidelines, and this can be encouraged in the form of incentive programs. Now communication here is key. What we need to do is have corporate officers, or probably just the CEO, address different targeted audience in an honest, immediate, and effective message. Now from there, what can happen is creating and developing a PR, a public relations center, which could be in the form of a website. Now on this website, it could probably have include the CEO's message, different frequently asked questions, and just kind of instructions how to get through this and make it as user-friendly as possible. Now here, this also goes into reverse marketing, and we have a flow chart of the communication response process, which Alyssa will go over.
Pretty much we have the problem being identified, moving down to C-level management, being notified of the problem. Then that investigation team will notice if the product needs to be recalled or not. If the product needs to be recalled, it goes to two separate lines where we'll notify all our internal stakeholders, employees, distribution or manufacturers, and we'll notify our external stakeholders, which would be the stores and the consumers. They'll follow down the flow chart where they pretty much will sync up again at the website that Sharon just described, where the product recall information will be all there and the consumers will know how to give their products back and how they'll be able to get their products back in the future once they've been fixed. pretty much will all end up ending with a continuous improvement plan to make sure this problem never happens again.
I'm going to talk a bit about implementation. First of all, in the event of another recall like this, hopefully they won't have another recall, but just in case it does happen, there needs to be a manufacturing distribution contingency plan, as well as emergency communication response and like Alyssa just talked about. Part of the manufacturing contingency plan means when you identify the root of the problem, so let's say it's one of the factories in China like we talked about, we have to shut down production there once we figure out the problem so we can fix it and take preventative measures while they're in the Chinese factory to make sure they fix everything. And in the meantime, shift all the production back to the US to make sure the production is still happening. And do probationary runs in the Chinese factories once the problems are fixed to make sure, so do very short manufacturing runs, test each individual run that's coming through to make sure it's okay. And then once we know it's okay and the problems are fixed with quality, shift all the production back to China. I think it's important to stay in China because it's a huge market and it'd be wrong to step out of there since they've made the big investment. Emergency response plan is super important to be able to kind of fix the brand image and make sure that people know that this is still a strong brand, they're still really caring about their consumer, and they want to help even though they kind of messed up in the processes. And they also need to reduce risk by putting stricter standards and processes in place. So just to sum up a little bit, the company really needs to demand higher levels of quality, and that'll come through with stricter supplier certification and evaluation that comes in with the scorecard, and also the on-site quality engineers will really help. If a company places on-site quality engineers, someone's always watching, even if it's not their company. And I think when the boss isn't around is when the most mistakes happen, but if the boss is always there, they're gonna try to have a higher level of quality. Keeping production in China is important, as well as creating a manufacturing contingency plan that has sustainable reverse logistics. If the products are contaminated and have contaminants that are dangerous to children and families and the environment, they need to be able to recycle those properly and be able to really be good to the environment and not waste any resources there. And the emergency communication response plan needs to be followed. It needs to trickle down with C-level management. If it's just in place and no one uses it, it's not helpful. But overall, it's always a process of continuous review and improvement with their contingency plans and also their quality management. And we think that if they choose to implement this, they'll be able to prevent, hopefully, product recalls in the future. That's it. Thank you.